Hi, this is Little Dwarf playing games while rambling incoherently into a microphone. Why? Well, just because I can. And to continue with Werewolf the Apocalypse, Heart of the Forest, Blind, I'm here in the Białowieża forest, or Puszcza Białowieska, trying to stop the logging. And it seems I have two options. Go to the harvesters with Olga, or go to the protesters. Now, I feel like I will go here first. I'm not sure if it's exclusive, but I would like to pursue the peaceful route as opposed to trying to simply destroy the harvesters, because I feel like that's going to accomplish nothing, and that's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario is going to attract a lot of negative coverage and a potentially brutal response from like the police and stuff. So I would like to go peacefully. So I'll go to Cornell and try diplomacy. In the limelight, as I approached the group, Kim waved at me. "Come here." They took me straight to the leader of the group, the man who was arguing with Olga. "Hello, Maia. I see you haven't come alone." He reached out his hand. Well, what was that about with Olga? What was that argument really about back there? I asked. Why, do you suspect some hidden motives? I couldn't tell if he was amused or suspicious. His eyes were uncanny shade of grey. He might have been in his early 30s, I thought. Why were they arguing? But seriously, that argument looked personal. I looked back at Olga and her crowd. Her heart is in the right place, but her methods are not optimal. Cornel looked at me in the eye. "I know why you came to Białowieża. The forest is reaching out to you, because for a long time your ancestors were its servants, and now you're the only one left to pay what they owed." He seemed to believe it. "And my family left unpaid debts to the forest." I looked at him skeptical, but he seems to believe it. "The important question is, do you want to help?" I had no time to answer. But before I could answer, I heard commotion and turned around. The reporters were coming our way, but their cameras were switched off and pointed at the ground. Wait, if the cameras are turned off, then... Oh, cameras. Just the cameras, right? So maybe they are doing an interview, like simply just the audio and then overlaid over something. I could use that opportunity to say something poignant. I saw an opportunity to shine. "Do you need an interview?" I offered. A hot take, a Polish American coming back to the land of her ancestors to protect European heritage. "So?" asked Cornel. There was a hint of impatience in his voice. The reporter shook his head and grimaced. "Sorry, everyone, we can't do anything. We are not allowed to cover what's going on here." Wait. Why? Did I understand? I don't really understand. So I wonder if I choose this option, will Maia herself tell me what she figured out? Like, I guess it's probably because, and again, this might kind of relate to the real events at Białowieża circa 2016, kind of, and onwards, because this exact situation, well, not exact, but vaguely, this situation has really happened, and I guess the lack of coverage might be because the Polish government is potentially embarrassed of like international repercussions in the court of public opinion, or maybe even in the actual courts of the European Union, because obviously it is a UNESCO heritage site, and it is a national park, so they might be forbidden to film it specifically because the government doesn't want doesn't want the logging mentioned on the news and doesn't want a scandal. So I guess suddenly I understood. I don't want to decrease my rage for that. I don't want to increase it either, so I'll choose that. The press is sympathetic, apparently. Then it hit me. The police weren't there to protect the protesters or the press. They were there like the arm of the government, right? Yeah, it must be hard to do your job when the police is watching your every step. I said, and they nodded. There was a moment of tense silence, and then it all came together. Suddenly I understood the dream. That was the moment I was destined to intervene. We could still use the reporters because I feel like international coverage, especially the right kind of coverage, showing the protesters as peaceful and reasonable, would help a lot in this situation. And in fact, again, that's kind of what happened in real life. Like, to be honest, I don't really remember where it all ended, with the real logging in Białowieża. But I do remember there was a lot of sort of international buzz about it, specifically because it's a UNESCO site and a national park. So I guess we could still use the reporters, especially because apparently they are sympathetic towards me. Keep talking. I looked at the protesters. They didn't have any real plan, so I guess maybe I will propose one. They were a ragtag bunch, thrown together by circumstance without any real plan or clear purpose. I looked around, put my hands in my pockets, and wandered towards the journalist. They just needed a little nudge. I always wanted to be a journalist, I said to the nearest one. The fourth pillar of democracy and all that. Maybe things work differently here in Poland? He looked at me with tired eyes. I winked. He smiled. Unspectacular as it was, I managed to connect. I acted on it. Does it always look like this? I mean, is it... What? Does it always look like this? I mean, is it an everyday situation that you can't report? No, answered one of them. He was tall, in his 30s. There were a few glances towards him, almost a flash of warning, but it was too late. So, if they are not filming, why were they in Białowieża at all? Apparently they don't really like that I asked. Wait, why are you here at all? I asked, and then it hit me. You were sent here to find some dirt on the activist, to get something that would compromise the protest. They looked at one another, unsure of what to answer. Then I heard shouts as Olga and her protesters clashed with the police, and the cameramen grabbed their gear and ran towards the action. Remember, we want to get the aggressive ones, shouted one of the reporters. I could see the logo of the national TV station on his camera. Oh, right, crap. And she, Olga, she played directly to their hand. Like, that's so stupid. That's exactly what I was talking about. They are going to portray the protesters as aggressors and as unreasonable people that just want to create a dangerous situation, and it's not going to attract any public sympathy towards the protest. On the contrary, actually, soon we were all alone. Fuck! Connor swore and threw his thermal cup at the ground. It bounced, spilling hot coffee everywhere. Someone grabbed my shoulder. I turned around and saw Kim. "This is when you exit the scene." They turned me around and firmly pushed me away. "We'll be in touch," they whispered. Damn it, I kind of screwed that. Yeah, I'm not happy with that at all. I'm not happy with that in the slightest. I feel like I botched that whole approach. I wonder if I still have a chance to somehow resolve the situation peacefully. Anyway, the ugly truth. When I was on the road to the village and nobody could see me, I doubled over and vomited. I always felt violently sick when there was too much to process at once. In the whole commotion, I lost Anya from my sight. I was alone, or so I thought. "Hey, are you alright?" a voice behind me said, and I jumped. A woman was walking towards me. I guess I am mostly fine, like I'm not hurt, I'm just annoyed. "I'm fine," I said stiffly. She rummaged in her pocket and handed me a handkerchief. "Here," she said, "I have water as well if you need some." We walked towards the village, and we talked. I learned that she was an independent German reporter who came here about a month ago. Her name was Erika. "So, why are you protesting the logging?" she asked after a few minutes of small talk. "We had to save the Puszcza." "I think the Puszcza is unique, and when I saw how many trees they've cut just one afternoon, it broke my heart," I said, still shaken by the sheer number of the fallen trees. "I have to do whatever I can to save the forest." I looked at her. "And why are you asking?" She looked at me with renewed interest. "Do you know why they are cutting down the trees?" She asked back. "Because you do know that the logging is done by a government company. The state forests?" "Yeah, and that is true. That's what happened. And I wonder if they will touch on the bug infestation, which I'm not a botanist. I'm not an expert in woodworking. Like I'm not an expert on trees, so I can't really gauge how much of a bullshit excuse that was. Like maybe there was some truth to that, but basically, in reality, they tried to explain the logging as preemptive action to stop the infestation of whatever the bugs that eat wood are called. I don't know. I don't know this English word. But why? But why are they doing this? I wasn't sure if I understood. Shouldn't the state forest take care of the Shouldn't the state forest take care that the forest was healthy? Erika reached for her notebook. Okay. So that's the word. It's all started with spruce bark beetles. Erika looked into her notes and started explaining the whole situation. That year, the beetles' infestation was of catastrophic proportions, and the foresters decided that the only way to stop it and to save the rest of the forest was cut down as many infested trees as fast as possible. So was cutting down the trees necessary? Would she know? Because I myself, in real life, don't know. Like, I'm not educated enough to really weigh in on that discussion because I don't know how it works. I'm not sure what's the expert opinion. But I've read back in the day a lot of back and forth, so it's clearly not that clear cut because there were a lot of dissenting voices that said that it's clearly an excuse and that the logging is done for profit. So, make of that what you will. I myself am not, an expert enough on the subject to really know. Was cutting down the trees necessary? Is cutting down the trees the only way to stop the infestation? I asked, confused. The foresters state that it is the only way, she said. Some biologists argue that they're cutting the wrong trees and doing it too late to change anything. Couldn't they just remove the dead trees? Maybe if they'd remove the dead trees, the infestation wouldn't spread. I tried to find a solution. They might do that, but dead trees are what make the forest unique. There are 20 times more species living on a dead spruce tree than on a live one. Huh, interesting. Was the logging legal? But is the logging legal? I wanted to know. Opinions differ, but such a massive logging in a UNESCO-listed area might be illegal, Erika answered. Did they have to intervene at all? Couldn't they just leave the puszcza alone and let the nature take its course? I asked. That's one of the options, Erika admitted. But there's a drought, and no one is sure if the forest would survive on its own. The situation was more complex than I thought, and Erika's answers did nothing to clear the picture. Yeah, that is true. That is true, and it is definitely complex. As I said, I myself didn't really know enough in the real world situation, and I don't feel like I know enough about it in the games situation. The fact that I want to stop the logging is mostly because I feel like it's thematically appropriate to me being a werewolf, but maybe there is some reason behind it. I tried to understand her point of view. I see that you are trying to help. I see that you are trying to show me the whole picture, and I appreciate it. I just hoped that there would be an easy answer. I'm just doing my job, Erika shrugged. I describe all aspects of the situation to you, but it's up to you to decide what you want to do. It was a tough decision. I shook my head. Why did the situation always have to be so complex? At least I was sure that they were cutting down the trees and that the puszcza needed my help. What happened to the wood? Does she mean the wood after they cut down the trees? So that might be an interesting, if you try to follow the money to see if there is profit being made, because if there isn't, then if there isn't a profit being made, then it's a point in favor of cutting down the trees, because if there isn't a profit, there must be some other reason, presumably a noble reason, maybe. But if there is money being made, then it muddies the water again. What happened to the wood? When they cut down the trees, what happens to the wood? The state forests have to be financially self-sufficient. They earn money by selling forest products, including wood, she answered. That's why I think the bark beetle is not the reason, but an excuse to put more wood on the market. I concluded my case. She looked skeptical. You're not the only one feeling helpless. She sighed. I'm just helping you make an informed choice. Yeah, again, that's exactly what I said. This was one of the points in the real world debate, that the beetle bark infestation, the bark beetle infestation was an excuse. But again, I don't feel like I'm educated enough on the subject to make an authoritative statement on that case. So, what was right and what was wrong? Yeah, I really don't know, to be honest. So, what should I do when I feel something is wrong? I asked, exacerbated. Do you believe that people can be evil? She asked back. It's an interesting question. Although I guess it mostly comes down to your definition of evil. Like, I myself have a pretty generous view of human nature. I feel like people are fundamentally decent, given the right circumstances, which many people, including my best friend, see as naive and stupid. So I guess out of the two, I would say that we could do bad things, but doing bad things doesn't necessarily make you evil yourself. It all kind of depends on the context. We could do bad things for sure. Some people do really, really shitty things, I shrugged. But is it just their actions or their nature? I said nothing. What's the matter? She asked. I guess... I told her about my anger. I guess that's an interesting question for a werewolf in the world of darkness, specifically because anger is in their nature, like literally, and they often do very ugly things because of it, because they can't control it. I guess I'll tell her. Might be interesting. Although, what is my fear? That might be interesting as well. I shared my fear. I feel like opening up to her might be a good way to make her more friendly towards me. So yeah, I shared my fear. Something wasn't right with the whole situation. I didn't know what it was and it scared me. I took a deep breath. Then I remembered what Colonel had said. All that mystical stuff. And then they said, I have some family debts to pay. I shook my head. It's a lot to take in, and there was this foul smell back there. She looked at me with a weird expression. What smell? She asked. How come she didn't smell it? You didn't smell it? The harvesters reeked of something, like meat that's been rotting in acid, only worse. I couldn't find the words to describe it, but the memory of the foulness still clung to the back of my throat, swimming in my sinuses. I know what you're talking about, she answered slowly, but I don't think everybody can smell it. I looked at her and raised my eyebrow questioningly. You'll learn in your own time if you stay here long enough, she said, clearly wanting to drop the topic. Ah, so presumably she's a werewolf as well, or at least a kinfolk, maybe, because this reeking stench of something rotting and of acid, associated with the harvesters, is the stench of the worm, and surely the game must elaborate on the worm at some point. But basically, the worm to the werewolves is this cosmic entity that's the embodiment of corruption and destruction, and it's their greatest. The servants of the worm are the greatest enemies of the werewolves in the world of darkness. What did she mean? What do you mean? I asked, getting irritated. I just told you. You'll learn in time, or not at all, which would frankly be better. Anyway, gotta run. As I watched her leave, I thought that whatever was my family legacy had surely manifested itself that day. I guess I'd made some progress. I decided to pay my family's debts. I'd jumped right into the middle of a very tense situation, and at the very least upset the status quo. I just hoped I hadn't made things worse. I kind of feel like I did. Like, I'm not at all happy with the situation at the protest. Time to regroup. Anya came back soon after me. I lost sight of you, she said apologetically. I'm glad you made it in one piece. So how was your day? Anya asked. I had a chat with the reporters. I had a nice chat with the reporters, I grinned, and I learned a thing or two. Anya frowned. I heard that you can't trust them. I never said I did, I winked. I met a lot of new people. I met some very interesting people, I said, still excited. Yeah, they look like a colorful bunch, Anya grinned. Maybe you could introduce me later. They sure are passionate. They argue between themselves more than they argue with the loggers, I added. I learned a lot. Did you know that the government supported the logging, even when it was illegal? I shared my dismay. Anya just nodded solemnly. Yeah, I've read about it. Why didn't you tell me? Well, you had a lot going on, she shrugged. It was all I wanted to share. I shrugged. Just another day in Białowieża. We sat for a while in silence. You know, there is more to see here than just Białowieża, Anya said, from over her travel guide. Pogorzelce is a village in Białowieża forest established in the 17th century to produce charcoal. Because even the name Pogorzelce, you cannot translate it directly, but it evokes the word Pogorzelisko, which is a place that has been ravaged by fire. So obviously, it refers to the process of producing what's the word? How do you call it in English? Wood charcoal? You know, the one that you get when you burn wood that's covered and you slowly burn it out and then it leaves the charcoal. Budy is a village in Białowieża known for its open-air folk museum and a copse of ancient oaks. Teremiski, location of an informal summer folk university. Czerwonka, built in the 19th century around the forest industry, now a tourist destination. There's something interesting in every village. An open-air museum, some kind of a folk university, the bison. Maybe you'd like to see something more than the logging. I probably can't see everything. It would be great if I could see everything, but I can't. I shrugged. I want to focus on the logging, even if I'm missing something else. And how's the search for your roots going? Anya couldn't stay silent for long. I guess I didn't learn anything yet that would breach the veil, so I guess I can share it. I shared what I'd learned. It seems that my ancestors lived around the forest for a long time, and there are some kind of debts to be paid. Anya looked impressed. Honestly, I'm not sure what to think, but if you need something, just let me know. I was tired. I just sat there, looking through the window. The day had been full on and I was exhausted. I didn't notice when I fell asleep. And again with the dream. I can do anything. It's quiet now, yet I know deep down inside that something isn't right. I keep walking. I'm walking through the forest to the logging site. It's getting dark. The light seeps away as though there are a million of tiny punch holes in the sky through which it can escape, and then the darkness starts to pour in. I know what I will see. Do I? Will I see the severed heads? And the bodies? Yeah, the bodies, yeah. I see the bodies strewn around the ground, bloodied, maimed, with their limbs torn from their destroyed torsos. I can see some of them are still alive, still struggling for air, still trying to live. There are trees, fallen trees, still alive, still struggling for air. And then there is the stench. I can smell them. The stench is dark, rancid, putrid. There are monsters at the edge of the forest. They have long skeletal arms. They are wrapped in glistening black intestines, and each arm has a wide, gaping mandible full of whirling blades. They snap at me blindly. I feel righteous anger burning through me, like molten lava bubbling from the ground, through my feet, up my legs, through my chest to my head. I point at the monsters. My friends watch and I bask in their rage. Oh, interesting. Those are the werewolf glyphs, because the Garou, the werewolves, actually have a whole well, they have their own language, but they also have their own alphabet, kind of. Well, it's not an alphabet, it's a system of pictograms that they create with their claws. And those symbols have different meanings. Unfortunately, I don't really remember, them well enough to say what those particular one means. I think this is the symbol of one of the tribes, the Stargazers. But basically, all those symbols mean something in the tabletop game. I howl the sentence. I howl out the death sentence and we run towards the monstrous shapes. We bite off heads and tear off arms. We are an executioner's axe, unflinching. And then I wake up. I gasped and bolted upright. I was alone. The sun was setting in the deep red light of the room. It looked like it was bathed in blood. My pillow was on the ground and the duvet was torn. Tiny feathers were spilling through the tear. What happened? Well, I'm clearly turning into a werewolf. Chapter 3, Standoff. I need to talk. There was no way I could go back to sleep. Since I'd arrived in this accursed village, things had been getting more and more peculiar with every passing hour. The last dream freaked me out, and I needed to find answers to all the questions buzzing in my head. I needed to talk it over with someone I trusted. Now, Anya is clearly a human, at least I believe so, so I guess I'll go to Kim. Kim seemed okay. I thought about Kim. They had to have lots of experience and they seemed to accept all the strange shit that life throws at us. We definitely hit it off as well. The sun had just set and the moon wasn't up yet. I started walking. The forest loomed on the horizon. The activist camp was was somewhere there. I soon ran into Anya. "Oh, Maia, good to see you. We need to talk." I was all ears. "I'm worried about you. Since we got here, you've looked distressed," she explained with a sigh. "I've asked around, and it seems that you are associating with dangerous people." "They know things about my family," I answered, "and I need that information." To be honest, it's kind of dangerous. If she is a human, it's kind of dangerous to bring her with me if I am about to turn, The first shift, the first change, when a werewolf first changes, it's often very dramatic and it often ends with blood. I wouldn't I would be pretty sad if I killed her in my rage or something, so I had to go alone. "I appreciate your concern, but this is something I have to do on my own." Anya looked at me stubbornly. You won't get rid of me that easily, and we walked together. So I guess she's going to come anyway, she just likes me less now. All together now. The camp had a different vibe than the logging site protest. There were more people there. We looked around, trying to take it all in. "They are coming and coming," Anya laughed, excited. And the people in the camp seemed quite cheerful. I watched them for a moment. I saw people at work. Some of them were filing big barrels with sand. Some were busy making what seemed to be posters. The rest were singing or cooking. Everyone was contributing one way or the other. I looked around. I definitely needed to talk to someone about what was going on and about what I felt. I saw Kim talking to Cornell. "Hello," I said as I approached. Cornell smiled at me. "Hello," he said. "What brings you here?" I needed answers. I shrugged and dug my hands deeper into the pockets of my jeans. I have so many questions about myself, the forest, and the logging. Cornel looked at me with those uncanny grey eyes. I could feel his attention lock on me. It's okay. Join us and you'll understand. We're here to stop what's happening, to show that we don't agree and that we hope to make a difference. Will it work? I don't know. All I know is that it worked before. It worked for Gandhi. It worked with segregation and with the apartheid in the end. It worked with communism. So let's see if it works with capitalism as well. Violence is not the answer here. He smiled. And I think you know quite well that anger doesn't really get shit done. Well, I feel, as I said at the beginning, I feel like it does in some cases, but not in this particular case. So I guess I don't agree in general. But that will bring my rage up to 3 again. Although I might need it if I am to fight. Because I do not agree in general. I just agree that in this case we shouldn't get violent. I don't agree. Oh. Oh. Well, that's... I don't like what I just did. I felt uneasy. I've heard this phrase so many times, I said slowly. And you know what? I've seen anger get shit done so many times. So maybe it's my turn to use it now. I'll see you around, I guess. It was time to talk to Olga. Damn it, I'm not happy with that. Because I don't, like... I don't want it to get violent. In this case. I just didn't agree with him in general. If I'm going to kill the loggers in the end, I will be annoyed at myself. Anyway, I turned around and walked toward the far corner of the camp where Olga was. I came there looking for Olga and soon I spotted her. Well, hello again. I didn't expect to see you here so soon. Actually, I didn't expect to see you again at all. I joined the banter. Aren't you just a ray of fucking sunshine? I said with a broad smile. And to my surprise, she started to laugh. Her face softened. What brings you here, kid? She asked after a bit. I was confused. I'm confused. Is it really true? I mean, Cornel told me strange stories about my past and the forest. There is nothing to be confused about. She shook her head. It's perfectly clear that the government will destroy this unique forest if someone doesn't stop them, and you have an obligation to fulfill. She broke off and bit her lip. What do you want to do about it? I wanted to smash things. Well, to be honest, I don't. But it's my only choice because my rage is high and I offended the other guy. I want to do something, anything. I want to feel like I'm doing something that has a meaning, that will change what happens. I feel like I could smash those harvesters with a hammer. Do you have a hammer? I had a family debt to pay. I couldn't just be an observer anymore. She looked at me. Her eyes were a weird color, like deep dark honey or molasses. I might, but I need your support, because Cornel will try to push his own agenda. The tipping point. They all wanted to do something that night, but after a whole day of discussion they were still divided on what to do. 3 for one option, 3 for the other. I saw no reason to back up Cornel. Actually, I do. I personally do see a lot of reason to back him up. I just chose a wrong option because I didn't think, like, I thought I was speaking more generally. I guess that was stupid of me, but I feel like I have an obligation to myself and to everyone, basically, to at least try and amend my own mistake by going back to Cornell and trying the peaceful route after all. Although I feel like at this point I'm kind of screwed because I've been so wishy-washy, on both sides, that I feel like it's not going to be effective, but I would still at least like to try. Like, if it comes to blows with the harvesters and with the police, at least I want to know that I did try to avert that. I don't want to lean into it, even though that might be a more werewolf thing to do. But I think it's a mistake in this case. I just didn't agree with him generally when he said that anger doesn't do anything, because sometimes it does, but not in this specific situation. But anyway, I feel like this episode has been long enough, so I'm going to actually pause here and continue in the next one. That's all for this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!